You know, sometimes you just gotta ask yourself one question. Do I feel hungry? Well, do ya? Hello. Welcome one and all to the new show called Talk Sense Some, where I aim to do just that. At the time of recording this, the number 7 video trending on YouTube is one published by Vox, and it is called Want to Save Animals' Lives Without Going Vegan? Eat Beef, Not Chicken. Now already there's a couple sparks in my head, but I'm just gonna go ahead and let them speak for themselves on this one.
Everyone has met a vegan who has been rude to them or who has been, outrageous or just angry or yelling at them. So it's not surprising that someone like Anthony Bourdain will call vegans Hezbollah. Just have this reputation, rightly so, because of how many of us act, of just being just absolute fanatics.
Well, yes, and yes. He shows some video examples, but it's really nothing you can't find anywhere else on YouTube, so I'm just gonna go ahead and leave that out. But at this point, you kind of get the gist of it, how he's calling out the extreme activists, and they're actually hurting the overall cause. There's a lot of other things to say on this topic, but he gets to some other details here just on the other side of the opening, where it'll be easier to start talking from that point, rather than from right here in the opening. So let us now venture forth into the nitty-gritty of this video.
Basically, no one eats meat because they want animals to suffer. No one goes to the grocery store and says, yeah, I love what Tyson does to this chicken. That's what I'm going to support. People eat meat because everyone around them eats meat. It's what they're used to. It's what's familiar. It's what's easy and cheap.
Well, you're almost using common sense on this one. But I don't actually think that people are looking over other people's shoulders to make sure that they're eating meat. Could it be more likely that over tens of thousands of years of human evolution that humanity is actually biologically accustomed to eating meat? And that by abstaining from meat, we're actually exposing ourselves to more health risks? And then I'll spare you the horrible video cuts he throws in there from different animal manufacturing places or fast food restaurants. But right off the bat, he makes his stance on the topic very clear, and I'm actually curious to see what kind of evidence and facts he uses to support his stance.
Some friends and I decided we should take a different approach. Rather than just pushing veganism, we should take the opportunity that people have to take one step that will have a profound impact on the number of animals suffering, and that is to have them not eat chickens anymore.
Boy, be careful. You're going to get some low-income neighborhoods after you. All jokes aside, I do give him credit that he's recognizing the extremism in his activist cause, and that he's experimenting with different things. I also know exactly what he's leading to here with the not eating chickens anymore, but I'll wait to throw in that comment when he brings it back around later on in the video with more examples and material to work off of.
The average American diet causes about 25 land animals to be factory farmed and slaughtered every year. If people just stopped eating chickens, they will spare 23 of those animals. This is because it takes over 200 chickens to provide the same number of meals as one steer, or over 40 chickens to provide the same number of meals as one pig.
And there it was. So the solution to fix the meat industry on behalf of animal rights is to just stop eating chickens. First off, as someone who likes to dabble in the realm of philosophy, he pretty much word for word brings up a very big ethical dilemma, and that is there is a train going down the tracks, and the tracks split in two. And on one side, there's 20 chickens, and on the other side, there's one cow. Do you pull the lever to change the tracks or let it run its course? It's pretty much a question of who gives you the right to say who lives or dies. Secondly, people like chicken. It's a healthier, more lean kind of meat. And then you have to consider what would happen economically if you were to all of a sudden boycott one of the biggest products in the agriculture industry. You don't really look much of a man who's comfortable with confrontation, and I'm sure you haven't yet thought of the families you'd be running out of a job because all that they have to live off of is chicken farming. Now, these might be reaching on examples, but these are the things you're supposed to think about when you're planning on making a change that big. With an exponentially growing population, humanity needs good, reliable food sources. And for one, meat is there. Second off, it's well established. And thirdly, we're just biologically supposed to be eating it. And to all of a sudden cut that off dramatically, you're leaving a lot of people exposed to very dramatic health risks. And I do see your point that yes, beef and pork both have substantially more meat on them than chickens do. And I'm not docking you that at all. It's a very, very good point, actually. But this channel wouldn't be what it is if I weren't critical about everything you said. So I'm not really disagreeing with you per se, but I am giving valid counter-arguments that are very important to consider when deciding on something like this. Back to you.
There have been a number of studies, the most recent by Faunalytics, that shows over 80% of people who go vegetarian go back to eating animals. And almost half of the people surveyed on this say that they go back because they can't stand the pressure to maintain a pure diet. And so when we're pushing people to eat the way we eat, we are driving people away. We are driving people back to eating meat. Around 2% of people are true vegetarians, and about 0.5% of the people in the United States are vegan. Now, this is after decades of advocacy. Peter Singer's book, Animal Liberation, came out in the 1970s. PETA came around in 1980.
So if you missed it, he waved around a lot of numbers to prove his point, which for some reason go back to the social pressures of eating meat? I don't know, it's just an interesting way to compose a video. He says that over half of the vegetarians that revert back to eating meat do so because they can't stand the pressure of eating a pure diet. That's pretty vague, and taken in context, it can sound like that he actually meant the social pressures. More likely than not, though, it's probably due to the biological pressures of all of a sudden cutting off meat to your body when it's used to having to consider it into its diet and metabolism. Humanity has one unique aspect that makes us different from any other organism that we know of to date. We have surpassed the need to put time and energy towards the effort of survival. Now that we're living comfortably, we now have the luxury of being able to focus on things such as the arts, philosophy, ethics. But relative to human evolution, this has happened very, very dramatically. Biologically, there's still many aspects of the human body that wants to work on a survival basis. It doesn't consider that we have the luxury to just go to the store and buy whatever we want. And it's still built to have a diet that's a mixture of plants and animals. What happens when you take a brick out of the food guide pyramid? It topples. This is probably most likely why vegetarianism and veganism haven't taken off. And to add on to that, why most of them who try it decide to go back. And to refer back to the beginning of this video, even though you are in a 0.5% with veganism, it is a very loud 0.5%. I'll guarantee you that the density of extremism of that populace is very, very high. But I can see the point you're trying to make here, and it's animal rights and ethics over human biology. And that's a really difficult debate to have. In fact, it's so difficult that it'll probably just be left on the burner until enough people can decide on it as a whole. I mean, this is something that you'd probably find in a philosophy book somewhere. It's just interesting to consider all the factors of interests on both sides of this argument here. Psst, I'm pro-chicken.
So groups and advocates have been at this for decades, and yet the percentage of people in the United States who are vegetarian has basically not changed at all. So it really is time for us to reconsider our message, reconsider our advocacy, and do something that has a chance of being different, that has a chance of breaking through to the general public. Because we know, just by looking at the graphs, just by looking at the numbers, that we have been failures at this so far.
Now he says it's time to reconsider his advocacy, which is a really big deal, and I want to give him credit for that, but it could also potentially be that he's just trying to sound sophisticated, as the entire video is kind of laid out the same way a Kickstarter video is. I do want to give him credit, though, on not only having a strong viewpoint, but offering a solution to what he thinks is a problem. And that's better than what most advocacy groups can actually do. The only problem is that the topic at hand is an ethical dilemma that can be debated and debated without ever coming out with a strong conclusion either way. So now I'm going to turn to you and ask you what you think about it. Should we go through with this plan to abstain from eating chicken in our diets? Or should we continue on as is in preparation for the higher human population in the future? Join the discussion down in the comments below, and if you like what I'm doing here, leave a like and subscribe, and I look forward to hearing back from you. I'll see you in the next episode. This has been Talk Sense Some, and until next time, I bid you fare thee well.